Welcome everyone to our monthly Protect Ohio Children recorded webinar. We're so glad that you joined us to find out about indoctrination in Ohio schools. I'm Diane Stover, the State Director of Protect Ohio Children, and I'm going to help moderate this month's meeting with our POC board. We have just been overwhelmed with the outpouring of feedback and gratitude for these monthly updates, and also the social emotional learning webinars with Marcia Metzger of Parents on the Level. As we engage with state and national experts, and when anonymous whistleblowers give us information that's harmful to minors, we expose it. So I'll be watching your questions through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. And as time allows, we'll take a few questions. At the end of the webinar, there will be a survey you can use to give feedback. So at this time, let me turn this over to John Stover.
Thank you, Diane. You know, one of the areas that we did have a whistleblower inform us was regarding the governor's desire late last year to enter into an agreement with Child Mind Institute. And this is a very radical organization that he is bringing into the state of Ohio that right now is specifically pre-K. You know, what we want to do is we want to take a look at very briefly here some of the things that we have learned regarding Child Mind Institute. But before we do that, I'd like to go to a video of the governor and the representative of Child Mind Institute that we have out there on our website. And for those that are joining us today, you know, you can take a look at all the material that we did provide a couple of weeks ago at OhioValueVoters.org. It's on the right-hand side, and it's the fourth bullet point. So you can go there and take a look at that. But we're going to play this video for you.
By making a large investment in mental health awareness and education for some of the state's youngest citizens, preschoolers. The Child Mind Institute is honored to be working with you to bring preschool Healthy Minds, Thriving Kids project to your state and to teach children critical mental health and coping skills. Governor DeWine, what is your hope for these young children when this content launches this January?
Well, you know, science tells us, and we continue to learn, but everything you learn tells you that the earlier that you can have some impact on a child, the more effective it's going to be. You know, we know a child's brain is 80% developed by 5 years of age. We know that before they ever hit kindergarten, there's been a lot of influences that have really impacted them. And so giving caregivers, giving parents more tools from professionals just seems to make a lot of sense. And the earlier that we can do that, the better off the child is going to be.
And we really hope this will be fun, engaging, educational with kids. And we think that parents and educators are going to enjoy being part of this journey too. What message do you have for parents and caregivers?
Well, I think, you know, people should look at this as just a tool. It's professionals. They can go online, they can pull this down. I mean, this is how people get information today. And it's going to be presented in I think, a user-friendly way. It's going to be easy to understand. It's going to have some repetition, but it's going to be, structured so it's not boring. It's going to be something that I think people are going to find that they can really use. All we all want is what we want for our own kids. And to be able to live up to the potential, you've got to make sure that they don't have barriers there. And whether it's mental health barriers or other barriers, you know, removing those barriers so kids can learn and enjoy life, be happy, and live up to their full potential. That's really what our goal is.
And we hope that this is going to be a model for other governors in other states so that preschoolers everywhere will be able to get these kinds of skills.
Look, children and parents, families are facing the same challenges all over the United States. And what we hope to do in Ohio is not only help people in Ohio, but really kind of show the way that this is these tools are important no matter where your child lives, no matter who your child is. These tools are available and we hope will be very, very helpful.
Thank you for your generosity and for putting young children, in fact, putting children, but in particular, very young children, in such a high priority on your agenda.
Well, the earlier we can start, you know, the better. We know how much these kids develop. You know, Fran and I have now 27 grandchildren, so we've seen it. We now, you know, we have very young children. We have a grandson that was just born about 3 months ago. So you just marvel when you see the development of these children, and you know how very important the first few years are.
Thank you for thinking about the children of Ohio, and in some ways the children of the United States, with the same kind of love and the same kind of consideration and attention that you give your children and your grandchildren. It's the model that we all want to follow.
Well, we appreciate very much partnering with you all. Thank you.
You know, the issue that we have with Child Mind Institute, you know, it all sounds like a great program that the governor is attempting to bring to the state of Ohio. You know, one of the areas of concern that we had, our organization, and I know Linda Harvey, Mission America, but Ohio Value Voters worked diligently with the General Assembly when it came to Senate Bill 1 to make sure that there were safeguards put in place as relates to transferring education authority rulemaking to the governor's office. And unfortunately, he has decided to label this as pre-K initiative, whereby if he had stated it was going to be K through 12, it would have required him following the law. And the information that we provided a few weeks ago was basically stating that Governor DeWine circumvents state law, brings in radical California program. And this is a radical California program that Gavin Newsom has brought into to his state. Now, one of the things that we need to look at is that, and this comes right from Child Mind Institute, and I'm reading this from their material, and I quote, "Children may start to question their gender identity as young as 2 or 3 years of age. When they become aware of the notion of gender, they may assert, 'No, I'm a boy,' or 'No, I'm a girl.'" You know, it is just ludicrous to think that you're going to sit down with a 2 to 3 year old and you're going to start questioning their gender. You know, it's just mind-boggling. Where in the world is the governor coming from on this is beyond me. And many of the people that we've spoken to, it's very, very difficult to understand. You know, one of the other things from Child Mind Institute that is stated here, they state here, the important thing is to follow kids' lead and go at the pace that's right for them. Never share information about the child's gender without their consent. The goal is for kids to develop the skills to advocate for themselves over time. So now the big question becomes one of, what is the age whereby a child must give consent? Since this is a pre-K program that the governor is bringing in to the state of Ohio. You know, if anyone out there that's, you know, with us today, if you find this in your school, if you find this being provided in any capacity, it's Child Mind Institute, and basically it was to provide transforming children's lives. And DeWine has announced that it's Ohio Healthy Minds partnering with Child Mind Institute. So that's what the governor's office had called it. But if you find that this is out there in your school district, if you find that it's being brought to the pre-K within your city, within your county, please contact us and let us know, because this is something that we're going to continue to shed light on. You know, one of the things that, you know, I thought was necessary to do, and I did contact and reached out to Senator Andrew Brenner. And I did this last week, and I'm waiting for him to get back to me. But I asked him about this. I said, "Senator, what's going on?" he says, you know, I have the same question. I've reached out to the governor's office and I've asked them to explain what they're doing here. So this is of major concern to our organization, to those that are on this, that are with you today. So once again, please contact us if in fact you learn of this within your city or your school district. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Linda Harvey of Mission America.
Thank you, John. That's very disturbing information. I'm Linda Harvey, president of Mission America. I'm also on the board of Protect Ohio Children. And my agenda item today is to give us some good news. And it is about something many of you are going to know about, and that is the passage of House Bill 68, the SAFE Act, the Save Women's Sports Act. And then, of course, we're back to the governor again. He vetoed this bill. And the good news is that the House and Senate in Ohio acted promptly and they voted to override his veto. So since that happened the final vote was on January 23rd, it has 90 days to go into effect. So this bill is set to go into effect on April 23rd. Now, this, just for background, in case there's anybody who's not aware of what this was all about, this is the bill, and it's similar to bills in many other states, the bill that would ban these gender treatments and surgeries, medications, puberty blockers, opposite sex hormones for minors in the state of Ohio for the purposes of so-called gender change, which can never happen. No child is born in the wrong sex body. No human is born in the wrong sex body, actually. But certainly these are experimental and radical mutilating treatments with no long-term research behind them and should not be done on children. So the other part of that act, they blended two bills together, is the Save Women's Sports Act. And that is to keep gender confused boys off of girls' sports teams. Now, what we hear is that the ACLU has plans to file a lawsuit against this bill and to stop it. So what, excuse me, what we all need to do is pray very hard about this, because what's going to happen is that the ACLU will probably, excuse me, do their judge shopping that they usually do and put this before the most liberal judge they can find. And what we hear from our friends at CCV, who have done a really good job shepherding this bill along over the past few years, is that Dave Yost, our Attorney General, is ready to fight the ACLU and defend this bill. And the other good thing that we have in our arsenal is that Ohio, if it gets to the federal court level, is part of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which also covers Kentucky and Tennessee. Both of those states passed similar bills on the gender treatment issue, banning those treatments, and the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld those bans. In other words, those states were allowed to go ahead and implement those laws back in this past September. So we have in our arsenal a really good set of court precedents, which should back that up. So keep praying. And also, when you're in the position of praying, please thank the Lord for allowing this to happen. And also, thank your Republican representatives. As I'm understanding, not one single Democrat voted in favor of overriding this veto. And most of the Republicans did vote in favor of that. So we have a lot to be grateful for. A lot of children are going to be protected from these radical experimental procedures and from girls losing their opportunities in sports as a result of the action of the Ohio General Assembly. So I'll turn it over now to Jonathan Broadbent.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jonathan Broadbent, and I am a chair and territory lead of Protect Ohio Children. I cover the district that's roughly the top 1/3 of Ohio. It's about 204 school districts, kind of Mansfield area, Mansfield area and north up to Lake Erie. And we've been at this for a long time. I've seen a lot and experienced a lot. So I have a couple of expressions that I throw out regularly just to kind of keep things in perspective. And let's face it, in this era, with all that's thrown at us in the world of education, it's easy to lose perspective. And let's bring it back to where it should be, and that's education. We have K through 12 education, and the mantra forever has been get kids into good schools, get them a proper education, arm them with what they need in order to succeed in life. But we have migrated away from that. We've migrated into what I call ABE. It's an expression I came up with a while ago. It stands for anything but education. So as we talk about all this stuff, and like, should we have social emotional, and should we include dental, and should we put a hair salon in school? Just all this nonsense that seems to keep percolating in Ohio's K through 12 education. I keep going back to like, what in the heck? We have actually ended up, and I comment on this regularly, we've ended up, unfortunately, let's face the truth of it. We're last place. Ohio has slipped to 38th out of 50 states. At the same time, we're softening our academic curriculum, our proficiency standards. At the same time, we've become one of the most expensive places. The US is most expensive. So we're languishing, we're falling behind. And when it comes to all this stuff that's sort of infiltrating and coming into schools, like the video we just watched from Mike DeWine, the question, the question in addition to follow the money is who's there to stop it? And borrowing an expression from my wife, who has a background in education, she started saying a long time ago, it's not a matter of whether or not this is in your district. It's who is strong enough to fight it when it gets there. It's a key expression. I hope you hold on to that, because as you look at your school board and the people you're putting into leadership roles around the children in your local district, you need fighters. You need people who are willing to stand up against this indoctrination that's happening throughout and push back and try and find our path back to academics, because those are languishing. I'm telling you, we in connection with Protect Ohio Children, we created something called the Academic Accountability Project. But where I'm headed with this in today's discussion is what to expect when you do get somebody good on your local school board. If you do get that fighter, because recognizing all this, it takes a few steps, finding somebody good in your community who's willing to step in and take a role on your local school board. But I started saying, kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, a long time ago, if any of you have seen the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, when the aliens used to screech and point at somebody they would discover is outside of, like, they haven't been converted and they're not in the realm of these aliens. I'm a kind of a sci-fi fan. You'll have to forgive me that. But what's happening to school board members who are discovered to be counter to this leftist narrative is disgusting. It's vile. I'm going to give you two quick examples. Both are in that North territory, but I'm hearing examples all over the state and all over the country of people for what I call education aware, whatever you want to call anybody who's willing to step in and take a role on a local school board, conservative, quote unquote, or education aware, anybody who counters this move to the left is being attacked on social media, in the community. They're being everything you can think of, everything with the kitchen sink, lawfare, and there are two examples I'll give you just by representative example. These are happening all over the place. It's frustrating, but there's a counter and there's good news. The first is a school district not far from me called Chardon. In Chardon, the long and short of it is there were some parents who were questioning adherence to the dress code policy. Kids were dressing, in the eyes of some parents, inappropriately. The parents felt that they weren't getting any appropriate response from the administration, so they went to the school board. One school board member took it upon himself to challenge that and took a principal and superintendent. All three happened to be male, and they talked about it and they discussed what is happening. What are the children wearing does it fit within the dress code that's been published? That person, I actually went to that school board meeting. There was a 4-hour school board meeting where they censured and issued some sort of reprimand letter against that school board member. There's another case in mentor schools of some people challenging pornographic material in the school board. And at least one school board member brought that up in a school board meeting and then was blasted all over social media. It's unfortunate, but this is the environment we're in. There are some school districts where whatever you want to call them, conservative or education aware, whatever term you want to apply, they actually form the majority. They're actually able to accomplish things. But my point in bringing all this stuff up is first step is find good people, run them, and know that they need to be armed with good information about what's either there and how to find it or what's coming their way, because there is mass consolidation, federalization of all of this stuff that's being sort of driven from Washington. But then when they get there, when you do have good school board members, for goodness sakes, climb onto social media, start liking what they're saying, follow them, encourage them, and show up for school board meetings, because these people are really putting themselves out there and they are suffering horrible, vicious attack. That's what I wanted to bring to today's conversation. Thanks.
Well, I'll be next up, filling in for Kathy Pulse, who could not join us today. She is our Central Region Chair, representing the center of our state, centered out of Columbus. But the update from Central Ohio is about the Big Walnut School District, very much in line with what Jonathan just mentioned. The district is doing the right thing. Some very responsible, good, conservative school board members in the district are protecting kids from leftist propaganda by allowing only school mascot, state, and national flags in its buildings. None of the massive pride flags, transgender flags, and all of the other things that go along with it. But now the district is being stormed by protests. And the Columbus Dispatch, of course, is fueling the fire with an unacceptable article that they put out. I'll read an excerpt from it that says a group of parents, church, community, they always have to throw church in there, right? Church, community leaders, and others has submitted a letter asking the Big Walnut School Board to rescind its ban on LGBTQIA+ pride flags. The letter from the group Action Tomorrow, dated Monday, says that the ban the board adopted in December is unconstitutional and unethical, and its consequences are determined to are detrimental to students' academic performance and well-being, of course. Quote, every Big Walnut student is entitled to psychological safety, a learning environment where they feel valued and affirmed, regardless of orientation, gender identity, or any aspect of their personhood. The letter states the presence of pride flags signals acceptance and belonging. Their prohibition in Big Walnut schools will establish structures of discrimination that encourage and normalize the overt marginalization of targeted students. So, and there's much more here about stop the demonizing, et cetera, et cetera. The letter was signed by close to 250 people. So this is what we're up against, as Jonathan so well stated, that when you have people doing the right things and trying to bring the district back to academics instead of indoctrination, immediately there is a storm of protests and pushback coming from the left with the propaganda of the print media and other left-wing media. So that's our update from the Central Region today, and I'll turn this over to Darby Bodie.
Thank you, Diane. My name is Darby Bodie. I am a member of the Lakota Board of Education and a member of Protect Ohio Children, the board member. Sorry, Austin. My light just went off. Okay. All right. Well, I am discussing a local experience with Children's Hospital and the transgender ideology incorporated through their transgender clinics and the ousting of parental rights. So this can start when a parent seeks help with Cincinnati Children's Hospital for anxiety and depression. The hospitals then gain control over the child, and the diagnosis quickly morphs into gender dysphoria, which is a made-up diagnosis, by the way. This is the exception, or this is the experience of two different parents and their daughters. Case one, a daughter was hospitalized for anxiety and depression. She was then admitted to the hospital for 4 weeks, which was highly rare for a teenager pertaining to the reason for entry. And it seems that Cincinnati Children's took the opportunity of the 4-week stay to convince the 17-year-old that she had gender dysphoria. And it also appears that they coached her on what to say to get her removed from her parents' house. So she made a complaint to a hotline about having to see a Christian counselor and that she cannot have access to puberty blockers. And then it appears that the Hamilton County Jobs and Children's Services partnered with Cincinnati Children's to lie about the suicidal threat of the teen, although no medical record stated there was any such threat on several documents. And then the grandparents ended up receiving custody and continued the transition. And then the second experience is another child, college age, previously on medication for depression, was currently having trouble with social anxiety and depression, and went to Cincinnati Children's for treatment on her own. She was quickly diagnosed with gender dysphoria and started drugs immediately. The mental therapy consisted of agreeing with the child, which is gender affirming care, and then getting the patient to separate from their parents. The child was put on testosterone, a class 3 addictive drug. And when the parents learned about this and expressed concern to the doctor, the doctor became agitated and asked, would you rather have a dead daughter or an alive son? And just so you know, this is a common line to guilt families into cooperating. And then she stated that if you do not go along with the intervention, including a path to a mastectomy, then the parents would have no part in their child's care since she was 18. The parents unfortunately became estranged, and the University of Cincinnati arranged for the daughter to claim homelessness in order to receive grants for college. Medicaid paid for the medical bills to transition, and then there are about 300,000 GoFundMe accounts for girls desiring mastectomies, which clinics refer to as top surgery. So I believe it is safe to say that Children's Hospital and Children's Services in your area may partner together to remove a child from a home and then pairs them with a family who allows the continuation of harming their body through chemical and surgical castration, therefore continuing the lie that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy. This also continues the flow of millions of dollars into these organizations. It's important to know that Dr. Kennard, who is the director of Transgender Health Clinic at Cincinnati Children's, stated that 100% of their participants are considered appropriate for gender treatment, meaning there are no rejections. I also think it's important to know that Children's Hospital psychiatrists are in schools throughout the Cincinnati area and in Ohio. My district uses Cincinnati Children's for school-based therapy, and there are also school-based health clinics throughout Ohio that can use Cincinnati Children's as well. So Dr. Kennard also, interesting enough, Dr. Kennard has a Liberty Children's in her jurisdiction, which is right next to a high school in Liberty Township, who coincidentally has a noticeable amount of sexually confused students versus the other high school. I think it's important to know that the process of seeking psychiatric care for a teen, in particular at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, for anxiety and depression can very quickly turn into a diagnosis for gender dysphoria. So vet your psychiatrists. Women are a huge target right now for predators who initiate this sexual confusion agenda. The uncomfortability of going through puberty and the anxiety of becoming a woman, as well as social anxieties, which are normal in a school environment, are quickly diagnosed as gender dysphoria which is an absolute lie, and there's no such thing as gender confusion. There is typically an activist in the school environment who leads the charge for transgender ideology and LGBTQ activism through social and emotional learning and DEI, or DI, as I like to call it. Look for your GSA, Gay, Straight, Trans Alliance clubs, and look into who the adult supervisor is and if they're a teacher. We also have a GSA group in Lakota. Two actions that I think we can take. Number one, this leads me to the proclamation that it is extremely important for board members to have unfettered access in the public education system so they can observe the environment and suss out transgender ideology activists in the school and get rid of them. There is a reason why board members are being blocked out of our education system, and we need legislators to pass a similar policy that is in Florida that allows unfettered access for board members in the public education system so they can do their due diligence as board members and observe the school environment. Another thing that you can do, and I believe that it's important not to use the left's or Marxist words, and there is no such thing as gender. It is called sex, and you are either a boy or a girl. There is a need for linguistic discipline from us who are in this battle for our children. A good podcast that I listen to is James Lindsay on New Discourses, and the title is The Need for Linguistic Discipline. There are a lot of big players who spread the ideology in schools and in clubs, and one of the parents that I previously spoke about gave me a list, and a lot of this information in this presentation, and gave me a list of resources that the LGBTQ transgender agenda organizers use and infiltrate this into the public education system. So that is all I have, and I'll turn it over to Diane.
Okay, we do have a few questions for all of our participants, panelists, and you can, I'm sorry, there we go. We'll take a few questions. If anyone else wants to add to these questions, feel free through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. The first question comes for John Stover. Do you know of any, or does any of our panelists know, are they going to censure the governor? Has any action been talked about or anything in the works right now about this?
Well, let me just answer that very quickly, Diane. This is one of the things that, once again, we had worked closely with the General Assembly when Senate Bill 1, transferring the authority, rulemaking authority to the governor, was that we had a couple of bills that are cited by Ohio value voters, and what we put out a couple of weeks ago. You can take a look at that. Ohio Revised Code 3301.13. 3301.137 and 3301.138. Basically, the General Assembly, and specifically the any and all programs that the governor would decide that he is going to bring to the state of Ohio for K through 12, the General Assembly has the ability to basically override, get rid of that program. But we did find it rather interesting that the governor referred to this as pre-K, which is not part of the law. And one of the things that I have, in fact, been urging the legislators, and specifically Representative Adam Byrd, who is chairman of the House Education Committee, and I mentioned Senator Brenner earlier, he is chairman of the Senate Committee. We need to look at amending the language of Senate Bill 1 to include pre-K, because we cannot have the governor continuously, looking at bringing these programs in and once again circumventing the law. So, we are looking at that. As far as censoring, there's nothing that I'm aware of at this point in time as far as censoring the governor.
Okay, thank you. Question, what about the best, this for Darby, what about Best Point in Cincinnati or Child Focus? Where should someone go? I'm not familiar with those. Are you, Darby?
I'm not either. And are you referring to, where should they go for maybe some psychiatric help? I would maybe go in and visit with a psychiatrist myself and vet them first before you allow them to have a conversation with your child and see where their thinking lies. And if they confirm the lie that a boy can be a boy or a boy can be a girl and vice versa, then cross them off your list and go find someone else. I honestly am very skeptical about psychologists or psychiatrists at this point. Maybe even partner with your church and see if they have any recommendations is what I would suggest.
A question here, please repeat the name of the linguistics movie and person's name.
James Lindsay. And Diane, I sent you some links. Are you going to put those up at the very end?
Yes, that'll be on the slide at the end.
Okay, and it's called New Discourses, N-E-W-N or D-I-S-C-O-U-R-S-E-S. And honestly, he is a mathematician and he has a great skill at obtaining knowledge and reiterating it and putting it into little episodes that are easy to understand. So, sorry, I guess there's someone at the door. Anyway, so I definitely recommend listening to some of his podcasts.
Okay, thank you. We're getting short on time. One more, let's see here. Would you recommend taking your children out of the public schools, especially with the funding available to take to a private school? I'll turn that over to Jonathan and Linda.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you, there was an evolution of that. I had a conversation with Alex Newman, who you may recognize if you read the Epoch Times or the New American. He's all over social media. He's a great mind, and about 5 or 6 years ago at a conference that I went to, I happened to hear him speak, and he made the comment, get children out of government schools. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's really inflammatory, and what does he have with public schools? And I thought it was a little bit outrageous in my mind at the time. But then I've spent the last several years deep dive into the lack of academics, the lack of accountability, the growing use of there's everything bad, from race baiting and gender divisiveness to lack of academics. Everything that I'm seeing fairly across the board points to a much better academic experience most anywhere else. I'm sorry to say it, and it really does. It's still, even after all this time, it pains me to say that, but I absolutely encourage pulling your children, but please, 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 if you do, please also stay in the fight, because there is a valuable service to be fought for in public or government school, whatever we want to call it. If we can actually get it back to public accountability, I'll call it public school again. But that's, in a nutshell, my answer is yes, where possible, where even if you have to twist things around and get family members, get help from community, whatever it takes, get your children access to a proper traditional education. And phase 2, please also stay in the fight for your local district.
Thank you. We'll give Linda Harvey the last word before we go to our slide.
Absolutely. I totally agree with Jonathan. It's incredibly important. If you can get your children out of the public schools, you will never regret it. And also, we have to stay in the fight, however. And here's another reason, big reason. The government schools, public schools are forming the citizens of this country. And we can see what's happening. We can see that they are radicalizing our kids. They're teaching them to be divisive about shallow things like skin color, to think that boys can become girls and girls can become boys, every aspect of the sexuality agendas out there promoting that with no alternate viewpoint. And they are teaching them anti-Semitism, and that's part of so-called race. It's not. It's nothing like that, and it's astonishing how quickly anti-Semitism has become popular under the left's agenda in this country. And so we need to stay in the fight to preserve America.
Amen to that. And with that, I'll share my screen again. In summary from each of our speakers today, we have a recap of some action items. Number one, leave a message for Governor DeWine at 614-644-4357 and let him know pre-K children should not be exposed to the Child Mind Institute's Transforming Children's Lives radical program. Also, give support to Attorney General Dave Yost in his fight against the ACLU's lawsuit to uphold the Ohio SAFE Act. And lastly, as was discussed, build time into your schedules to support conservative school board members who are supporting pro-education policies that protect children and parental rights. Use your influence with friends, neighbors, and family, and through social media. Stay vocal. Attend and speak at school board meetings, especially when there are important agenda issues. And on Darby's talk at the end, on the screen here is a link that she referenced, and we all need to be raising awareness about this issue as it relates to the health clinics in the schools and the children's hospitals. We want to give another announcement that on Monday, you can attend the Parents on the Level webinar, Monday, February 5th. It's a part 2 on exposing SEL Castle. Also, don't forget, contact us and send indoctrination evidence to tips@protectohiochildren.net. And you can watch this video and other videos that we've previously shared at our Protect Ohio Children YouTube channel. And please join our Protect Ohio Children North, Central, and South Facebook groups so that you can be engaged with what's happening in your area of Ohio. Our next Protect Ohio Children update meeting will be on Friday, March 1st. We hope you'll join us. And thank you so much. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a great week and month.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.